Content Snare is a software product that helps people get information from clients. So instead of that back and forth process of chasing clients for months, back and forth over email, trying to get documents and just answers from clients, Content Snare comes in and fixes that. And we primarily do that with accountants. They have massive information requirements from their clients, whether that's in the client onboarding stage or end of year during the tax document collection process. They just always need information from clients. So that's kind of like how I would explain Content Snare.
Hey, welcome to the Message Market Fit podcast. I'm your host, Chris Silvestri, and if you're new here, this is a show where I chat with B2B SaaS folks in marketing, product, growth, and founders about how they join the conversation already happening in their customers' minds. We dive deep into their thinking, their systems, and their playbooks to see how they empathize with their audience and speak to them in a way that resonates, so they're compelled to take action. Join us and learn how you too can shape your messaging strategy and write copy that truly resonates and differentiates you. I'm super excited about my guest today, Jimmy Rose. Jimmy is the co-founder of Content Snare, a platform that helps service providers collect and organize client documents. In this episode, we chat about Jimmy's journey from the early AdSense gold rush days to founding a successful web design agency, and eventually making the leap to developing a SaaS model with Content Snare. Jimmy shares his experience in adapting to market needs, understanding customer pain points, and the importance of constant iteration and feedback in product development. We also dive into his insights on finding a niche in the software industry and the key lessons learned along his entrepreneurial journey. Let's dive right in.
Jimmy, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm great, man. I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Chris.
Yes. Pretty fresh podcast and we got great guests to start. All right, let's jump right in. I know that you started your journey in 2009. Was it the start with the agency? You had an agency and then turned into business. How did that go? Can you tell me a bit about your background?
Yeah. So, well, I'm not, 2009 is going right back. I'm not proud of the initial start. That's like the AdSense gold rush days, man. That was
Wow.
that was building crappy sites, trying to get them to rank on Google and just basically selling ad spots. Yeah. It's pretty dodgy.
Nice.
Pretty dodgy. But you know what's funny? At the time, I never really considered it as being dodgy. You know, it was like, oh, just a way to make money on the internet. But look, it got me started. So, but at some point we got into article spinning. That was our first software product. So again, not proud of that. But at the time, everyone was doing article spinning. It was like one of the main things, one of the main SEO things everyone was doing. But yeah, so we did that for a bunch of years. And then we ended up creating a web design agency in around 2014. Which is what led to our subsequent 2 software products. So I won't get into Silver Siphon much, but that was another one we built. And then now we're onto Content Snare, which was solving a problem that we had in the agency around getting website content from clients. Massive pain for that industry. And we've actually sort of fallen away from that industry quite a bit. Like we still have a lot of web designers that use Content Snare, but it's primarily like professionals now, like accountants, lawyers, like real estate, all kinds of different industries that use Content Snare to get documents and to onboard clients. So it's changed quite a lot, but yeah, that's the story in a nutshell.
All right. So when was the point where you realized that you identified this problem of getting content from clients, and when you understood, okay, this is something that I can build a business on?
So, you know, we'd built a few, like I said, we had built 2 software products before Content Snare, and we were just like, we knew the other ones were not like long-term things, and we were always looking for the next. Like we knew we wanted to build something that solved a big problem. We just didn't know what it was. And because I was in the web design space, I had a lot of contacts in that space also. And I remember I just interviewed a whole lot of designers all around the world. Like this is kind of early days for Zoom and that kind of thing. But you know, I spoke to people on Zoom and I interviewed people locally, like literally sat down for coffee with people and just asked them what their biggest problems were. Like I said, you know, start from but even before you get a client on board, you know, they come on and then we do this stage and then what happens next, all the way through to offboarding and when they finish working with a client. And I didn't go in with any like, this is what I want to solve. Do you think it'll be a good idea? There was none of that. It was just like, tell me about your business and your problems. And honestly, almost every single one of them talked about getting consent from clients being one of the biggest pains. And that was kind of like my immediate somewhat validation, right? I didn't know they'd pay for it at that point, but the fact that everyone spoke about it like that and the like passionate language people use, like someone literally said, this is the biggest pain in my ass. Someone said it made like, this makes me want to leave the industry.
Wow.
Like that's how big of an issue it was. So it was really passionate language that they were using. That's how we knew, like we did some other validation steps, but that was like pretty impressive.
Yeah. Well, was it something that you also experienced yourself and you kind of had like an intuition? Okay, I've experienced it and also other people telling me about that. So there must be something. Or was it just like launching into interviews?
Yeah. Well, so I didn't have the idea before the interviews, right? Like I just knew I wanted to solve something. To be honest, I actually had an idea for a website briefing tool because that was a process I thought could be done a lot better, like getting a client's wants and needs communicated better. And I had a big idea and big plans for that, but and this was the whole thing, I didn't want to go in with, like I said, with this is what I want to solve. What do you think? So I started the interviews just trying to see what their problems were. So I had this other idea going into the interviews, and then I came out of the interviews with a completely different product. So it was like a pivot before we even did anything, right? Literally, I think it was about 15 interviews. So it wasn't like a crazy amount of them. Yeah, but it was like, I think that saved us a lot of time and put us down a path that is much better, like I can't imagine trying to sell a website briefing tool, to be honest. Like I think it'd be a lot harder than what we're selling now.
Yeah, super niche. It speaks to the magic of like open-ended questions, right? Like leaving it open, listening more than you actually, like dictates your own direction for the interview. So that's really important. I have another,
like if you go and ask someone, like, do you think my idea is any good? They're probably just going to say yes, they don't want to hurt your feelings. So it's and I think I'd read that, like I'd read and studied about this process a lot. This was our third product as well. So I was kind of learned a bit by this point, and like, it was definitely not my own idea. I was just stealing someone else's, following a process, I guess.
Yeah. I like especially the kind of guerrilla research they did, especially you mentioned coffee shops and speaking with people in person, because that's like a whole different level of understanding when you're with the person.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
I'm super curious about like this process of speaking with your audience. I was wondering, because one of the biggest problems that I see with business owners, especially founders, when they have to speak to their customers, is this curse of knowledge, right? So what they know, it's the product that they built and they try to sell it to customers. But at the same time, they don't really have a clear perspective from the customer's point of view. And that's because they weren't maybe in the customer's shoes before. What about you? Like, do you think that having experienced that problem kind of was the cure to the curse of knowledge for you, that you were able to speak to them, or you think that you needed their perspective as well?
Definitely needed their perspective. So for a little bit more, like the part of my story that I didn't cover, is that I used to be an engineer before all of this. And engineers are basically allergic to marketing and sales. Like we hate it, or at least most of the engineers I know. And so for me to like learn how to sell something on the internet was really rough. It took me a long time to sort of unlearn trying to sell by features. Because like an engineer just wants to look at the list of features and go, okay, that's how I can work that into my process, whatever. But that and that's how we tried to sell for a long time until we really understood the whole benefits thing. I guess like this is a basic example, but yeah. So I would have probably struggled to sell it just using my own terminology and words. Those interviews were absolutely loaded with language and words that we still use in our marketing, right? Like this is from 6 years ago now. So no, 7 years ago. So that absolute gold mine for the things that came out of those interviews. So yes, I think that answers your question. It's like, no, I couldn't have done it just from my own knowledge. It made it so much easier to be able to reflect people's words at them, essentially.
And also speaks to the fact that what changes is mostly technology, trend can change, but people don't really change. So if you can dig to their deepest pains, desire, motivations, you can basically just keep collecting data that you can always reuse for all your content, all your copy.
Yeah, I think that's something we've been pretty good at over time, is just talking to customers. Like, we've done so many different variations of it, whether it's, surveys or just like even demo calls, like showing people the products, the stuff you learn there, getting testimonials, but also on the testimonial calls, finding out, like, sorry, just to back up, it's more like a video case study, but we pull testimonials out of that. But just interviewing a customer, we get like, we ask for the negatives about our product and as well, and get all that language that comes out of all these calls and surveys. And like, it's just amazing.
Yeah. And I can tell, because as a freelancer, agency owner, like looking at your website, I don't know if you already changed the copy. I know that you have that in progress some time soon.
It's always in progress.
But I can tell that it's really good. I mean, always, like all the times that I look at the website. So it's something that truly struck me, in the sense that I knew that you understand your customers quite deeply, I guess.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I will say, like, not all of the website, like a good chunk of the website, we've hired like copywriters to write as well, but they, what we give them is all that data that they, that I was just talking about. We've sort of distilled that into things. Like, if a new marketer comes on, like someone who's going to work for us directly, or an agency or someone now, I've basically just got a document where I just say, here's everything you need. Like, it's got like in my words, it's like who we are, who we serve, why this is a problem for them, why our solution's awesome for them, other solutions on the market. Here's all the best testimonials we've got. Here's the language people use. Like, everything is just in one document now. And like, I think it usually surprises agencies because no one's got their stuff together that much. But like, I just got sick of saying the same thing to everybody. So like, I just made a document, and it's like, it's got all that stuff in it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's sometimes, like, I tell my clients, like, whenever I jump in a project with you, whether it's like a 2-3 month project, I never pretend to get to know more about your business than you do, right? My job is not really like learn more about your customers and business more than you do. It's more of aligning your teams, giving you like a fresh perspective on something that you maybe can't see because you're super immersed in your product and business. So that's kind of my job. I never pretend to want to learn more about you, because you're immersed with like 24/7 for years, right? So it's impossible.
Oh yeah. And that's the thing. And as a business owner on the other side of things, it's kind of hard to remember that, like you kind of just, I think you called it the curse of knowledge before, right? Like, maybe this is a different version of it, but like, someone else comes into the business and you're like, oh yeah, this is what our product does. Like, this is how our clients are. And you kind of just assume they'll understand, but of course they don't, understand. So I actually have to remind myself sometimes that, like, this new person that we hired a month ago probably is still missing. There's a lot of spots, a lot of things that she doesn't quite understand yet, so I got to tell myself that. I think it's kind of hard to remember that.
And especially when you serve a lot of different types of personas, right? Especially like, for example, Content Snare. I see on the website that you list accountants, bookkeeping, legal, mortgage and finance, digital agencies, education. So one question that I always ask at the beginning of a project with a client, to understand like how much they know about their audience, their market, in their own words. And then I'm asking you now, it's, who does Content Snare serve, help, and how?
See, I normally change the answer to that question based on who's asking. It's
read my mind.
Yeah, like, the thing is, we are pretty focused on the accounting industry right now. So obviously we do help all those markets, and we have customers from like literally something like 30 different industries use our product. because it is capable of handling, like it's quite a flexible tool, right? But yeah, like if you ask me that, or like I was at a networking event, like, yeah, especially if it's got accounts or something, I'd probably like, yeah, Content Snare is a software product that helps people get information from clients. So instead of that, back and forth process of chasing clients for months, back and forth over email, trying to get documents and just answers from clients, Content Snare comes in and fixes that. And we primarily do that with accountants because they have massive information requirements from their clients, whether that's in the client onboarding stage or end of year during the tax document collection process. They just always need information from clients. So that's kind of like how I would explain Content Snare typically.
And how did that like persona evolve? Like you started with agencies. When was the time that you realized, okay, a lot of accountants are coming? Was it just because the accountants were coming to you, or you seek them out? How did it work?
It started out they were coming to us, but it was not clear that they were the next industry we would target. We ended up getting a lot of non-web design clients through SEO. So various like use case type, like people would search, I don't know, how do I get information from clients? Like really, really long tail random stuff. And we would show up for that. And then they'd sign up, and eventually we realized it was like, wow, we've got like a few random companies here that aren't web designers, because that was, originally what we targeted. Everyone was a web designer, and like, wait, what are you doing? What are you guys doing with Content Snare? And we had lawyers, accountants, HR, real estate, mortgage, insurance, like a bunch of education companies. We haven't even had a world's top 10 airline using our product. And a massive triathlon company. You can probably work out who that is just by saying it. But like some really crazy companies. And we were like, okay, like this is insane. Who else? Like who should we target? And it actually took us a long time to land on accounting, because I basically just chose one industry at a time. And then I went to everyone I knew who was an accountant or a bookkeeper, and then like asked them about this problem. And most of the accountants and bookkeepers I knew didn't really see it as a big problem for them. And so we wrote it off really quickly. And it turns out I just chose a bad subset of people, I guess. And also it turns out I'm a pretty good client at giving people information. So they said like, you're like a model client. Cause I was like, they're never chasing me for information. Like, why would an accountant use this? But it was just turns out I was pretty good at giving them information on time. But yeah, so we went industry to industry. I went to lawyers, and I had coffee with lawyers that I knew. I like used my network to find any lawyers I know, asked for referrals, and like I only had a handful of conversations, and some of them were like Facebook messages, man. Like they weren't necessarily coffees. These are like over DMs. So I spoke to a bunch of lawyers. I spoke to a bunch of mortgage brokers. I spoke to a bunch of accountants. Like I spoke to our existing customers who were in those and trying to understand how they used it. And eventually it just became clear that accounting was the way to go, so when we're in the middle of the decision-making process, we got an amazing video testimonial from this one accounting company. Then someone had found out about Content Snare through them, and they gave us a video testimonial. This is within a week of each other. And then a week later, we had a guy reach out to us. I don't know how he found us. He owns like a really large software product for accountants. And he said, we're interested in acquiring you because the industry needs what you do. And we went, no, thank you. But man, this is like stars aligning moment, right? Like where all this stuff happened for the accounting industry. And we were like, okay, we're accounting. We're doing accounting now, So we fell ass backwards into this, man. Like while I was doing a lot of research and trying to learn a lot, but we completely by accident ended up in accounting. I mean, sort of, I guess there is some purpose, like some direction there too. We were obviously looking for what our next industry would be, but yeah, it was just by chance that all those things happened in quick succession.
Yeah, it's actually probably the positive side effect of staying receptive and being open to listening, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like I wouldn't have. The fact that we were looking for another industry, and this is probably honestly over like a year, we knew that we had to look at another industry, but just none of them felt like the right fit perfectly until a few things happened, and just a lot of, definitely did not happen, in overnight.
Yeah. I'm curious, when you start seeing a lot of these customers, all these people coming to you, and they fit a specific niche like accounting, do you also start thinking in terms, okay, we need to develop these specific features just for accountants, or you just keep with your roadmap, like pretty generic roadmap?
This is a massive balance for us. It truly is, and it is difficult because there are some features that we build for accountants and we know they're only going to get used by 5% of our market. And that might take a long time to build, but that feature now gives us like marketing material because it's like now we're affiliated with one of the largest brands in the Aussie accounting space. We've done that twice actually. So a couple of really large brands, like we've built features not only for the fact that it's helpful, but for the brand affiliation that it gives us, like an integration, for example. Otherwise though, like outside of a couple of things, most of what, like 95% of our product is pretty generic. And that's, I think we're lucky like that in that a lot of people have the same problem. It's just chasing people for stuff. If you have clients, you're probably sick of chasing them for stuff. And so that stuff could be documents, it could be text, it could be spreadsheets, it could be, like a table, it could be, just answers to questions, like a form. So we're lucky that this is a fairly generic problem, but yeah, there are some, we mix it, but like, I guess that's the answer is we do both, but we're still very generic.
Yeah. Which is an interesting point, I think, because you are still as a platform, I think still quite niche in the goal and how you help clients. But there's this trend of unifying everything. Like, for example, ClickUp, it's got all apps in one. And I've used ClickUp as well for clients. And it was a really like a time saver, right? For collecting information, like replacing email. So how do you think about the competition and they trying to eat the whole client management software world? How do you think about standing out?
Yeah, well, I mean, just by doing one thing, you easily stand out because you're competing with something that's like an afterthought for the other products. Like this is like vertical versus horizontal, right? Vertical SaaS tries to do sort of. ClickUp is not even, it's vertical and horizontal. It tries to do everything for everyone, where vertical SaaS is like everything for one vertical, like accountants. And then horizontal, which tries to do this one specific piece for a lot of different industries. Where obviously that more horizontal space with a sort of focus on accounting. But this is the thing, like whatever the quote goes, jack of all trades, master of none. And that is so evident in the software space. Like I've seen products that start out as a really good product and then suddenly they deviate and start trying to be everything to everyone, or even they like products that do something for accountants really well. Now they start trying to do everything for accountants and their entire product suffers because of it. I've seen this over and over and over and over. And like, there are plenty of customers that want that. They want the all-in-one tool. They don't want to have to buy multiple tools. They're happy with like something that does like a good enough job at a lot of things. But I'm telling you, there are still plenty of people who understand the benefit of getting lots of best-in-class tools and hooking them together with tools like Zapier and Make and other workflow automation tools, right? And like, I'm one of those. I've never been an all-in-one software person. I hate them because they almost always turn into a dog's breakfast, performance degrades, like they end up with technical debt. Like ClickUp was struggling for a while there because they were trying to, like, they had that feature voting board and they would just listen to whatever features people wanted. And they built everything. Like they had a mind mapping tool in a project management software. I'm like, why? And it honestly, I was looking to leave ClickUp for a very long time because I was like, the performance was so bad. It's recovered a little bit now. And I'm like, but that's just a perfect example of how you stand out as a niche product. It's just by doing a way better job of that thing. And like, obviously this doesn't always work out, like, cause some problems can probably be solved like 90% effectively with half of as a feature of another app. But like getting information from clients for us, it's a huge pain. Like it is, honest to God, for most people we speak to, it's one of the biggest pains they have in their business. And there's like, we're trying to wrangle clients into like people that don't want to give you the information. We're trying to wrangle them into giving you the information. That's not an easy task to solve, right? That's not like I just built a shitty form on the end of my project management solution and hope that works. Like there are yeah, like as you probably imagine, we've heard a lot of hilarious and painful stories about like how hard it is for people to get information. So, and we have like a full team dedicated to just doing that. So it's a long way of
Yeah.
saying like, you just stand out by being way, way, way better. And that's not hard when you're comparing yourself to a feature of another product.
Yeah. And also because like when you start doing things that are not supposed to be in that platform, like for example, forms, I mentioned ClickUp, but all in general, other tools, like when you start doing forms that then the form field are tied to tasks because the platform also is a task management platform. And then you say, but I don't necessarily need a task here. Then you have to think about how to do it. It's a mess. Yeah.
And that's it. And that's like literally how it always becomes a mess, like there's very few products that could do lots of things well. And, like most of them that actually do a lot of things well, and this is going to be a controversial statement, but like Google and Microsoft, and look how big they are. Look, look how much money you need to do a lot of things well. Like,
yeah, exactly.
There's not many people making it work.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Yeah, it looks like you are finding your way because I saw a post, was it a month ago? That you said that November was the lowest churn rate, 2.8%, which is pretty good. And you mentioned it feels like we're slowly and steadily improving our product market fit, aka finding an amazing home among accountants. Can you walk me through how was it for you, like to find this product market fit since you started, or in the last couple of years?
Well, I'll tell you that the switch to accounting was like a step change. I saw someone, I don't know where this quote's from. Probably lots of people have said it, but product market fit isn't like a 0 or 1. It's not like a, do I have it? Yes or no. It's like a scale of how well you fit. And I can tell you in web design, man, like I went through a very long period of just like complete disillusionment with the business. I didn't know what we were going to do because it seems like we had product market fit, because everyone was telling us how much, like we had constant feedback of how much time it was saving people, and people saying it was easy to use and that like it works like this and it did so much. But then we'd have so much churn. We had like, I don't know what our churn was back then. It was like, say it was 9, or it was kind of probably 3 times what it is now. But we had all this churn, and so like something, we were plateauing. We basically plateaued. Was very, very small growth for a long time, and we just didn't know what was wrong. And like in hindsight, it was just like something was clearly wrong with our product market fit, right? Like I think we had a good product and we were solving a problem, but it wasn't a problem people were willing to pay enough money to solve, right? Like, and we were working with a lot of design freelancers who would go out of business, or they would consolidate into these like all-in-one tools, that like try to do everything for freelancers or whatever, which is an easier task, I think, because a freelancer, it's a smaller business. But yeah, so as time's gone on, I guess we've learned, it's just a lot of, well, accounting was a step change, moving to accounting, because it was suddenly like these people are constantly chasing people. It's not just like one part of their business when they're building a website. Like accountants need information constantly. That like maybe with bigger customer clients, every month they need bank statements or something. Or every 3 months they need something else. Every year they need this, and this. And when they bring on a client, they need all this stuff. So it was like this constant battle for them. So they're always using the product. And so that, that's, I think, market fit, like the market side, I guess, because it was basically the same product. It was just getting used in a different way. And, I guess I don't know if this is still product market fit. There's probably a third piece in this where it's like accountants' willingness to pay is higher, right? An accountant values their time at $300 an hour. That, if they've got 10 staff, they're doing like $1 million in revenue or whatever, ish, depending on what country you're in, I guess. But like, whereas, you talk to a freelance web designer, they're probably lucky to be making 50, 60K. So like $50 a month looks like a lot. Whereas accountants are like $50, like this, what? Like, what's wrong with you? That's too cheap. So that that's kind of what happened there. And I guess over time, it also just becomes the slow burn of like reducing that churn and increasing product market fit is just listening to customers. They're like asking them what features they want. And then when you build that feature, make sure you talk to enough people to make sure you're building that feature correctly. And it's just that over and over. It's just this cycle of like,
Yeah.
Feedback, prioritization, build, feedback, prioritization, build. You know, we had a prioritization meeting today just to make sure all the stuff that's on our list is still the right order. And it's not, it wasn't. Like we shifted around heaps of stuff based on what we've learned since our last prioritization meeting, like 3 months ago. We're like, you know what? That one's not so important. You know, this one's more important, you know? So we're just constantly shifting stuff around to try and just make sure we're serving the market, building a good product for the market.
Can you remember a time when you launched the feature and you saw some pushback or people didn't use it and you backtracked?
So I don't think we've backtracked. There's definitely a lot of features that we think are going to get used a lot more than they do. So yes, that happens pretty regularly. One of those ones was actually just like one of those integrations I was talking about that gave us, like, we built almost as a marketing feature rather than something like, I thought some people would use it, but like, yeah, like it was an integration that very few people used, but it gave us brand alignment that I can tell you has resulted in a lot of sales for us. Like it's just a tick box that people see. Oh, you've got an integration with them. Cool. That's all I want to see, even though they don't even use it. So like, that's an interesting example because I mean, it's still a positive overall.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like we've built so much stupid stuff over the years that we probably shouldn't have bothered with. There's some people who always get annoyed when you change something, but honestly, overall, it's generally pretty positive. We almost always get positive feedback when we release, and maybe that's just because we're taking our time and doing things properly. We're not doing a click up where we're just releasing something every week just because that's what we said we'd do. You know, like we release slowly, man. Like I don't know, some people might not like that, but we're trying to just do stuff right and make sure we planned it out right and you know, I guess get it right and not have the technical debt as well.
Yeah, that's true. Speaking of churn, I have one thought about churn. So a lot of people talk about churn in terms of the product and how well it serves customers. But I also think there's a big impact on churn from the messaging standpoint. So it's not only about like product use, but I think it's also a lot about how you set expectations even before people sign up for the product and as they're using it. So you're getting message product market fit. What about message market fit? I define message market fit as your positioning. So the right positioning, using the right language for the right people at the right awareness level. So do you think you also have message market fit now, and how, if yes?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So when you were saying that, the first thing that came to mind is like the opposite. Like when we had bad message market fit was in the web design space. I think the way we spoke about it, it was like going to be this magic bullet that would, like, you know, they turn on Content Snare and suddenly all the information, all the website content just shows up, you know. But of course, someone on the other end has to write that content. We can't do everything for them. We can chase the clients and make it easy for them and all that sort of stuff. So I think a lot of people came in expecting it to just be this magic bullet or to do a lot. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they expected, but I feel like maybe we were setting too high expectations and then we had a lot of churn that way. Well, that was just a feeling I had back in the day too. Like I never quantified that, but yeah, look, I think we've just got, like, comes back to what I was saying before about reflecting people's language back on themselves, right? Like that. And also, you know, like when you interview customers all the time, you get the words they use. So you know the words they use, you understand the pain better, and you can just say, put all that stuff on the website. So of course, you know, if you're able to solve that problem for another accountant, for example, like that fits with them exactly, because a lot of accountants have very, very similar processes. So I mean, does that answer your question? Is that like, because I mean, it's really just this. Yeah,
it becomes intuitive almost, right? You kind of internalize the language and start using it naturally almost.
Yeah, and the stories too, you know, like I've heard the same story over and over again, and now I use this in my pitches. You know, where I'm like, it's how I open my pitches, like, you know, I'm like, you know, it's tax time, and you need you're going to send an email to a client requesting like 10 things from them, and of course they're going to reply to you with like 7 of those, and then 2 of them won't even be the right document, and you've got to go back and forth and blah blah. You know, that's the opening to my pitch, because I've heard that same story like 100 freaking times from different accountants.
Yeah.
It's in the videos that I make. It's like,
That's the moment of highest tension, like the very vivid moment when they go, haha, yeah, this is true. Like this is my story, my situation.
yeah,
Yeah.
half of them are probably like, I literally had that yesterday,
Wow.
So that's how tight, I think when you find those stories, obviously stories are powerful, but yeah, like the language, if you're able to use their language in the copy and the messaging, the emails, I guess, it's not just the website, but the onboarding emails, even in like features of the app can use the right language, so.
I took a look at your personal website, kind of blog, and do you still have your kind of automation, Zapier automation consultancy going?
Not doing so many consults anymore. I've still got my course, but it is starting to get a little outdated now just because Zapier have changed their user interface a whole bunch. All the core concepts are still the same, but yeah, so it's something I'd love to get back into, but it's just a focus thing, right?
Yeah. One thing that I love though, like looking at your website, was all the resources for digital agencies that you had in there. I don't know if you're still selling them or offering them, but I saw you used to at the Agency Highway podcast, you used to a Facebook group, 5-day process challenge, web design and digital agency blog, client website content checklist. I think all of these speak to like your willingness and always trying to immerse yourself in your market and truly, trying to help them in as many ways as you possibly can. Do you think that like your work as a consultant helped you in any way inform what you do with Content Snare?
With the automation consulting, only slightly, I would say, mostly in like how our integrations work, because I've done so much automation and integration work in my life that I have a pretty good feeling of like how I want automations to work as someone who's used so much of Zapier and Make. So now that's probably the only thing it really informs. All those resources you were talking about the podcast. Yeah. Like we did the whole thing for agencies, right? Because I ran an agency. I kind of understood all the problems and issues. So like I was comfortable having a podcast and having a Facebook group sharing like awesome content for agencies. I had like email, 5-day challenge type things and blogs, but it's funny. Like I miss all that because in the accounting, like I feel like a little bit of imposter in accounting because what am I going to like tell a bunch of accountants how to run their business when I've never done it? Or I don't fully understand all the pains. Like I understand their pain with our product and how it works, but all the other bits and pieces, I feel like a bit of imposter. So all that stuff has kind of fallen over now. Like I don't have that, like we used to do every type of content for digital agencies, but now not so much for accountants. It's harder to market.
Yeah, it's a different world. There's all set of new like challenges, situations, anxieties. Do you find yourself, I don't know, like looking at accounting forums to research as well, other than talking to people? What do you do to immerse yourself?
Yeah, no, I mean, Twitter, there's the tax Twitter is like decent. LinkedIn, just seeing, I mean, honestly, a lot of it, there's not that many out there. There is here in Australia, there's one pretty well-known Facebook group full of accountants that is pretty good. Like at seeing the things that people are struggling with. I mean, a lot of it is stuff that like goes over my head because I don't really understand. But yeah, look, I mean, it's always just good to be in there in the industry. Like, I think you never beat talking to people in person. So I go to a lot of events. Well, it's been a while now, but like, some of the big trade shows, like, yes, we exhibit at some, but we also I just go as an attendee sometimes and just talk to people, obviously jump on calls with accountants. We actually we've had over the years, we've had a few different consultants in the space as well. Like I've literally just said to asked an accountant if I could pay for them for a monthly call just to, and I can bounce ideas off them. Yeah. Like bounce messaging off them, like things that I wanted, like, do we need to have a phone number on the website? Is an accountant looking for that? Like these are the things I'll ask.
Yeah.
We've had several consultants who are accountants themselves.
Yeah. If you could recommend another founder, one question to ask their audience to understand, I don't know, what they think, how they think, what would be that question?
Oh man, that is one question. Can I have a think about this for like a minute?
Maybe the question is the question that you saw in the past that you got like a great reaction out of most times.
Yeah, I think it's usually like, I would say like, tell me a story.
Mm.
Tell me a specific story of like that happened in your business that, you know, around insert problem we solve here, you know? So
Yeah.
like in our case, it's like, you know, tell me a story. Like for us, it's like when you were onboarding a client or like, tell me a horror story about
Yeah.
the last time you had to chase clients for content, or tell me a horror, like you know, because that's kind of like I was talking about before, just like those stories that people have. And a lot of time they'll be shareable. Like in the web design space, the story was always like, you know, we would chase this client for months for website content. And then they sent it back. And it was like this document where the content was all over the place. They had like images pasted into the document with like yellow highlighted text saying, please link this word to this page, you know, and that, again, that was like my spiel for the web design space. And cause you hear that same story from a whole bunch of different web designers. So like, I think I'd be like, tell me a horror story about
Nice.
insert problem we solve.
Yeah, it's probably because it brings them into kind of that mindset of imagining themselves in the situation, kind of,
Mm,
helps them create that drama and the vividness that you need for details.
for sure.
Cool. Last couple of questions. What's the biggest challenge now you think you have around messaging, around speaking to your potential customers? Follow-up question. If you would have to advise someone else on how to solve this challenge, how would you do it?
Yeah. Oh man, I love the self coaching thing. This is I learned about this recently. Like ask question, like pretend you're coaching yourself.
Yeah.
How would you answer this to someone else? Yeah, it's a really good question. Okay, biggest problem for us for messaging is trying to communicate what we do succinctly, because you know, we're not like a product that people understand, like an email marketing platform. Everyone knows generally, you know, what an email marketing platform does. Yes, there's features within that, but you know, if you want to send emails, marketing emails, use it. Well, we're not a proposal tool. You know, everyone knows what a signing platform is, or a proposal tool. We're in this like weird category that's not a category, that does a specific thing that no one's really searching for. So when someone comes to our site, if they don't know anything about who we are, like if they've heard about us from someone else, obviously that's it. They kind of warmed up. They know what's going on. But if they come to our site for the first time, trying to communicate what we do is still like quickly within like a header or something, you know, is still really, really hard. If I was to advise someone else to do this, I would, God, I don't know, man. I honestly don't know, because I would have done it. I don't know. I'd like try GPT, and I'd ask all your friends, and I'd ask all your customers for ideas. And I'd ask literally everyone you know for ideas, basically, is what I would say. But I've done that. So
yeah, in a way you're doing, maybe it's not a matter of like getting it in a snap. Maybe it's just like a long-term process, and you will arrive at the answer at some point.
Yeah, I mean, it would help a lot if we knew exactly what industry that person was in when they hit the homepage. So that's kind of why the second thing you see on our homepage is an industry selector. You know, it's like, hopefully they see that, they click their industry, and then we've got a much higher chance of communicating very quickly. Yeah. But if it's like, if you've got 20 different industries showing up, it's hard to communicate, you know?
Yeah. Are you keeping track of those clicks?
Yeah. Yeah. There's even when someone says they want to watch a demo video, they'll pick what the industry they're in, and we track all of that as well, just so we know. And when everyone signs up for the product, they choose their industry. So yeah, we have a pretty good idea of who's looking at it.
All right. Where do you typically go to learn about SaaS, product, messaging, marketing? What are your favorite places, online or offline?
God, it's you know, it's been a little while. For a lot of it for me is either books or podcasts. So you know, usually around whatever specific problem I'm trying to solve. I almost don't listen to I just don't go and generically read stuff anymore or listen to stuff. Not much, but like, you know, it's just, you know, Startups for the Rest of Us has been a classic podcast for a long time in this space. that are really good books, like Traction, not the Gino Wickman one. I can't remember his name. Gabriel, someone, I think, is something about different marketing channels for SaaS. Other than that, I hang out on like Twitter. There's obviously a lot of indie hackers and SaaS people on Twitter talking about SaaS. Yeah, that's kind of that's it.
Are you a LinkedIn guy? No.
I am. Yep. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, but there's not a lot of SaaS stuff for there. For me there. It's mostly for my actual accounting connections
with the audience
on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Last question. What's your biggest lesson from trying 455 new beers last year?
I'd say it's way more likely that I'm going to like the beer if it's dark and a very high percentage alcohol. So like 10% and above and a dark beer is very high chance I'm really going to enjoy that.
Nice. Any favorite to recommend?
My favorite beer I've ever had, and I'm sad because I'll probably never get to have it ever again, was at Trillium in Boston. They don't ship to Australia because I asked them immediately. I went back inside and I was like, can you send any of this to Australia? And they were like, no.
For life.
Yeah. It was like a 14% almond, vanilla, cinnamon stout. Yeah. And it was, my God, was it delicious. Oh my. It was like that. You'd have these tiny little sips and every little sip was just like, wow. Wow. So this tiny little beer would last you forever because you're only having these tiny sips, but delicious. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. That's been great, Jimmy. Thank you very much for being here. Super insightful.
Thanks, Chris, man. Like I said, it's really cool of you to ask me to come on. Hopefully I was able to help someone listening.
Yeah. Been super helpful. All right. Have a great evening. Cheers.
Yeah. You too. Thanks, man. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the pod. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, the best thing you could do to support the show and help me as a small business owner would be to leave a review. Head over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and let me know what you think. If you don't want to miss future episodes, subscribe, and if you have any feedback, questions, or suggestions for future episodes, just hit me up on LinkedIn at Christopher Silvestri or Twitter at SilvestriChris. Speak to you next time.